We are looking at another video here, another hybrid, and I might angle this a little bit to try to see if we can eliminate some of the flare on it. You have circuit boards. The whole thing is structured on a piece of plywood. But what you probably never noticed is when you get in close, what you see in here, it's a little wee etching. Some years ago I was living in Washington County and I helped the Historical Society do a survey of industrial structures. This was a glass factory. This is a little wee etching. As we move over here, we're looking at an old brewery, the Star Brewery, that was once upon a time in Washington, PA. It's another etching, a black and white etching that when it was good and dry, I put a little bit of color on it and just painted it. And the whole thing was once a thing that did video, a rather larger thing in the older technology, and that may be enough for this one to get a good impression of what it is so that we can move on. We are looking here at what might be another kind of hybrid. This one includes electric circuitry, and you can see a painting there, and you can see various kinds of circuitry. Actually, this one works as a monitor for my computer, and it's a thing that hangs on a wall. It's also in combination with something else here, this piece over here, which really started out as a one of a series, number 5, in a series of non-objective pieces, which over the years I added to, and it happens to be hanging beside my the monitor for my computer. And that little thing down there is the computer that's running this show. And as we take a look here, what we see is on the monitor various hybrids. This is a bit clearer image of what I was trying to show you there on the screen. Once upon a time, I lived next door to a guy named Bill Davey in Greensburg. And when Bill passed away, his family didn't even want the paintings that he did. These are paintings that he did. They were going to throw them away. So I took them and worked them into a thing that I called Tribute to Bill Davey. Right around that time, my computer crashed. The hard drive crashed. So I incorporated the hard drive from my computer into this piece. Also, a photo of Bill's store and Bill, and we'll look at that. That was Bill at his store and one of his children, probably in the 40s, right across from the Grove Street ball field. That was Grove Street, right over here. Now this little one also, I think of as a hybrid. It was a type case that movable type was put into, which I cleaned up, put some things in. That's a barometer down there. That's a little elephant. These are cutouts from paint charts, which I printed a little bit on. And that's what we come up with. This one needs a bit of explanation. The image is my old Volkswagen. It was about a 67. And I was looking at it through a piece of plexiglass. This is a plexiglass right here. And I drew on the plexiglass with a magic marker. You can see the drawing. And then I put some paint on there. You can see the color. After it was good and dry, I nailed it down to a plywood board. And then I printed these flower-like forms around the edges. This is another experiment. This is old Walworth valves. The part in the middle is made of body putty. It's the stuff you put on your car when you're trying to fix up the dents in it. And then I embedded, while it was still wet, a wood block that had ink on it of old Walworth. I later, after it was dry, sanded it down. This image up here and this down here was done on spackling. I embedded a set of ignition working tools in this up here. Down here, I imprinted type, spelling out Walworth, and put a little bit of color into it. A lot of the things that I do that are called hybrids were experiments. This is a lamp I did. I call this a hybrid. It's done on a background of a piece of plywood, which I had faced with spackling while it was still wet. I worked into it a bit. I put a lamp on there. Down here is the switch that turns it on and off. I put these images on there of ceramic work. This was Joko Kujunsik, who was a master potter. He was a local guy. It was him working on forms. This image was something that, another experiment trying to transfer images onto a wood block, which I would then cut out as a woodcut and print. And these were woodcuts that were printed. This up here was an actual woodcut. This was a block from which I printed. It was actually one of Joko's pots. Joko Kujunsik, master potter. We're looking at another experiment. You'd be surprised how much trouble artists sometimes go to try to find a dimensionally stable background that paper can be mounted on, because if you draw or paint or print on a piece of paper, it often doesn't stay stable because of the changing humidity in the air. And so I was working with this. I put a stapled screen onto a thing of plywood. I put spackling on there. Into the spackling, before it was quite dry, I embedded this little bit of paper that I had drawn on a bit. When it was all dry, I put some circuitry on there and put some paint on it. I mean, as long ago as the 1970s, I was experimenting with putting circuitry, electric circuitry onto paintings. This is the last one we'll look at. This is a combination of paint on plywood and plexiglass. This over here on this side is plexiglass with paint. Someone who's a bit more into human anatomy might think this is a couple sets of human boobs, but It's really just what happens when blue paint is poured on plexiglass. The plexiglass was then fastened onto the painting that I had done. With this is a little bit of electric circuitry. This down here, a round form, is just a skin from a paint bucket. But I was fascinated for a long time by Carl Jung's talk about archetypes and the archetypal form of the circle and how inclusive it is of so much of our life. I also like to throw paint, and you can see that. And that's about enough for this one. We'll say bye.